I am with Heather, and she is a GAPS practitioner, and I'm excited to get to know more about her. Heather, how did you come to find the GAPS diet?
About 13 years ago, I just got really into health. And I think this story resonates with a lot of people. I did like vegetarian, I did vegan, I did raw, juicing, all of that. Really, I was trying to fix some of my own health problems, but somehow I ended up at a Weston A. Price Foundation meeting, and there was someone speaking on the GAPS diet. And so that really caught my attention because a lot of the stuff I'd heard before or read or whatever it claimed to do, I'd never heard the idea of something curing autism or reversing autism, I suppose. I never heard of anyone losing their diagnosis. And so hearing that really sparked my attention. I was like, wow, that's crazy. And so 13 years ago, as you probably know, that's when GAPS was really about psychological stuff, bipolar, depression, anxiety. There were a lot of people getting healed of the other issues as well, but that's really what the focus on was. And then, yeah, hearing about broth and ferments, sauerkraut, all that, I was like, this is so interesting. And I guess I kind of came to terms with the raw vegan thing not working. So I pretty much did a 180 overnight and started doing broth and sauerkraut and all that stuff. Yeah. And I was just like, this is so interesting.
Yeah, there aren't many people that can just jump right in. So did you just jump right into the GAPS diet?
Yeah, I jumped pretty much straight into intro. I think I had meat for maybe a week first, but I pretty much jumped straight into intro.
And who was at the conference that you listened to?
You know, I don't even remember the woman's name. It wasn't really a conference. It was more like the small local chapter meetup. So it was in Santa Barbara. I think there were probably like maybe 50 people there. Just someone sharing a story.
Just someone. And then you took it to heart. Did you buy the book right away?
Yeah, I bought the book because I was just interested. And yeah, I did GAPS for myself. I didn't have crazy health issues at that point. Like I was already on a healing journey, so I wasn't eating really processed food and all that stuff. But I did have chronic stomach problems. So I could manage to do intro. I definitely felt some of that die off and felt really bad the first couple weeks. But, you know, a lot of people that I work with today are so sick that you're right. There's no way they could just jump into intro. They would just get so much worse. So, and honestly, I didn't even really know that back then. There weren't GAPS practitioners or anything. So I was just like, well, this is what I do. Yeah.
Well, it just is such a different thing to just jump right in without a lot of practice. But because you went through all those other diets, that kind of makes sense that you're ready to just try another thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So what was going on in your life that caused you, tell me a little bit more about what was going on in your life that you would be involved with GAPS?
Well, like I said, I did raw veganism, and I just kept kind of getting more and more intense, like, juice cleanses and fasting and all that. And it just wasn't really working. I grew up with stomach problems. So I had chronic stomach pain. Like I got prescribed some antacid thing, which is actually funny talking to you back then. And my mom really didn't give it to me, but I was in stomach pain like every night after we ate dinner, just really severe stomach pain, which I later found out to be seed oils. So it's cool that that's becoming like a big thing that people are talking about now, because I realized that about 12 years ago. Yeah, I know. But then when I did GAPS, it was really cool because my stomach really calmed down. And then not only that, I had all these other symptoms go away that I didn't even know were related to health. Like my skin cleared up. It was glowing. I mean, going from having acne to having just like beautiful skin. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. People would comment on it all the time. And I'd never had someone comment on my skin ever. But people would just be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, GAPS, broth, So yeah, that was kind of funny. And like my period, the pain really went away. And all of a sudden I wasn't having fatigue. I'm pretty confident that if I hadn't found GAPS, I was on my way to having what people would call chronic fatigue. I used to sleep like 10 hours at night and then have a 2-hour nap every day, which is crazy. So when I did GAPS and started eating those really nutrient dense animal products, the meat stock, the ferments, I still like take a 20-minute nap here and there. I love that. But it was just so different. like I felt like I could sustain my life.
Wow. Wow. So you saw immediate benefit. And it sounds like that you really didn't have one reason to even do the GAPS diet, not
Yeah,
anything huge. It was just kind of a, uh, let me get into better health. This sounds like something that maybe I need to go toward. Is that right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And,
But then I
and
had
then
all these amazing things clear up that I was like, oh, oh cool.
yeah, yeah. I didn't know that. I didn't know I had that problem. I didn't know I had that problem.
Exactly.
And yeah, those kind of things are very eye-opening for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you believe in the GAPS diet?
I have a few reasons. The first one is I have a pretty strong conviction that our bodies are designed by God to be able to heal themselves. I don't think we're meant to just live in this chronic, debilitating state where our health just declines and declines. And then GAPS, it resonates with me. I mean, it's just eating natural, unprocessed food. It makes sense. It's like there's no fad diet, spray, this brand new, powder that's going to heal everything, or sea moss. Like there's so many of these claims on social media, and it's just a con, where GAPS is like, it just makes sense. You feed your body what it's designed to eat, and it gets better. And so it goes along with, I guess, my belief system, but more than that even is just the success I've seen on it. Right now, I specialize in histamine intolerance. So that is people who are basically allergic to every food. Like some of them can't even shower. It's so severe. They have these histamine reactions where they're like itching and migraines, insomnia, really, really bad stuff. And some of them are down to like 2 safe foods that they can eat. But in the past, I've worked with people who have autism, fibromyalgia. I worked for a chronic fatigue syndrome clinic for a long time as their nutritionist. And I just saw so much success with GAPS. I mean, children on the autism spectrum who are banging their head against the wall, they're not interacting with kids, they're repetitively jumping off furniture, they're not sleeping through the night, they're not talking at all. Like I've worked with a few kids who have never said a word in their life, and they're 5 or 6. They get on GAPS. There's ups and downs. It's not like a smooth sailing road, but within a week they start talking. They're saying banana, mama, dada, and it's like, wow. I mean, so people could say, oh, there's no science behind it or there's no studies. It's like, I just need the proof in front of me. And that's what I've seen so much. So it's kind of undeniable at this point.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of successes
So
of
many
things that we're told can never be reversed or resolved or stopped or anybody gotten better from. And so are you more focused on the histamine now?
Yeah, that's my main thing that I do. I pretty much exclusively work with people who have histamine intolerance and food intolerances and help them basically to do GAPS, because it is more specific, how you do with stomach acid and everything. It's like there's a specific protocol that you want to walk on, or else these people cannot just, you're right, they can't just jump on into intro. They will be head to toe in hives on day 1, even if they, do it the best they can. So I just really help people walk through it, make it sustainable, meaning they're not just going to go through 6 weeks of pain until they see success. It's like, no, we're going to introduce it slowly and help your body to adapt. So yeah, that's basically what I do right now.
So they see success sooner with the least amount of pain.
Yes.
Do you want to go ahead and explain what histamine is and how these people are suffering from it?
Yeah. So basically, a lot of practitioners describe that we have like a histamine bucket, which is our body, and we can handle this much. And so we can get histamine from food, but our body also produces it. And we can get it from our gut bacteria as well, or if you have like a chronic infection. Basically what it is you eat a food or you come in contact with a poison or something, get stung by a bee, and your body is like, we need to get rid of this. So it releases histamine to deal with the issue. The thing that I see is practitioners will say, oh, okay, if you're intolerant to histamine, you just need to have a low histamine diet. But that's not actually the solution, because it's been shown that food histamine sources is only about 5% of our actual histamine load in our body. Most of that is produced, yes, in our body. So people with like a leaky gut, or what we would call intestinal permeability, basically GAPS people, they have a leaky gut, they have little holes in their gut lining. So even if it's gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, the healthiest food ever, if they're eating it, it's leaking into the inner parts of their immune system where their mast cells are. And so their body's constantly producing histamine. So basically, when we do the GAPS diet, we heal those holes with the meat stock and the good probiotic foods. It stops the histamine release. And then it also nourishes the cells on the gut lining, which create DAO. And that's like an enzyme that breaks down histamine.
Okay.
So if you picture that histamine bucket, we're basically taking the hose out of the histamine bucket and we're poking holes on the bottom. So now our body can get rid of histamine and it's not overproducing. And that's just one aspect of what GAPS does. But it also, by rebalancing the gut microbiome, lowering the bad bacteria and the chronic infections, also lowers histamine in the body. So it can definitely be reversed.
Okay, so we, if we have the leaky gut, then the histamine that we create and the little bit that we eat is what is causing everybody that is more, I guess, tending, or that's their particular trigger, to be worse than if it, or when it is healed, then it all balances out.
Exactly. Then, and I think that's a problem with GAPS. A lot of people who have histamine intolerance, they try GAPS, but they do low cooked bone broths, which are really high in histamine. And they start with like spoonfuls of sauerkraut, which is a ton of histamine. So before they've done any of that healing, they're just basically adding a ton of histamine to that bucket. What we really need to do is really slowly heal the gut lining, like one drop of the fermented foods at a time. Start with an ice cube amount of the meat stock, get a bit of healing, and then you can start adding it more and more, pretty much.
That is very interesting and very helpful, because a lot of people get, like you said, get caught up in, I can't do it because I can't eat what other people are eating, the big bowls of soup and all of that. And so it's really good to have this information that it is possible. They just have to have a different starting point.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
That is so awesome to know. Well, you talked a little bit about where you start with people on the GAPS diet. Do you want to expound a little bit more?
Yeah, so I think it's important to know that everyone, depending on what kind of condition you have, there are different starting points. And a lot of people will say, just jump into intro. The introduction diet is the most healing thing for histamine intolerance. So if you are recovering from that, that's really where you need to get to. But like I said, most of my clients are so sensitive. Like they can take a shower and they break out in hives, or some of them try to do an enema and they react to the plastic tip, like they can't do anything. So I always recommend starting with a tiny amount of meat stock, and you're only cooking that for a couple hours and then pretty much freezing it immediately. That stops the histamine production. Start with like an ice cube amount, start healing the gut, work your way up to a few cups, and then we introduce tiny amounts of probiotics. So it can take about a month to get onto the intro diet, but I found that way to be the least, like the easiest for people.
Yeah, the least amount of pain.
Exactly.
So they could push through it. Yeah. And there are people with acid reflux that also have to do the same thing, start slow. And it can be hard for them because they're so anxious, and eager to just get this thing fixed.
Yeah.
But we people, like you said, we just have to be reminded that we need to go slow in order to get to the finish line.
Yeah, and I often say people, like, our gut is like 40,000 feet of gut lining, and it's taken generations and decades to get to this point. So it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, usually we start seeing pretty good success within a month, and then it kind of exponentially goes up. I wonder if you have the same, it just ease onto it, and then you start seeing. But yeah, it's not a pill, and we're so used to that, right? Just take a pill and it goes away, no repercussions.
Yeah, there's no instant success. That is very true. But like you said, most people will start seeing relief, and that is the hope, that if they just keep continuing, that they'll find the resolve to their problem. I totally agree. Do you recommend any protocols for those struggling with acid reflux?
So I don't really specialize in it. It's usually like maybe a little additional thing that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen the GAPS diet to pretty much resolve most of it. Sometimes you need to boost stomach acid with like sauerkraut juice before a meal or something. And then maybe parasites are an issue. It's more of a signal that parasites are an issue. But I'd actually love to hear what you would say for that.
Well, most, in my experience so far, most it's just the GAPS diet. So I did everything that you did before to try and resolve my acid reflux with only some success. It was the GAPS diet, and I didn't even know if it would even do it at the time because I hadn't quite read the book yet. But I mean, it's a long story. I started it for my son, but in the end, it did help me. But it usually is the best thing for people, whether they have it just a little bit or they have silent reflux or LPR. It's the only thing I've found that actually has long-term success.
There's also, this would probably just be an addition, but have you used the tissue salt, or some people call it cell salt? I think it's the NAT phos, sodium phosphate. Do you know about that?
Yeah, I know about the cell salts. I personally, I just started using them. I was introduced to them probably 11 years ago, and then just started adding them more for, not really specifically for acid reflux, but for other tissue deficiencies that I have. So I'm working on those.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah,
I get a bit of the reflux, like a little bit of the heartburn usually when I'm pregnant. So I took that and it helped a bit. So not that it's like the main, cool. Yeah, it's not the main root thing, obviously, but just to sometimes have those little helpful things.
Yeah, it definitely helps because when you're pregnant, things get all pushed up, which makes it harder to to keep the reflux from coming up. That's for sure. So when did you decide to become a GAPS practitioner?
I think as soon as I saw that was an option. I'm in Australia right now, and we went back after my husband and I got married, and I saw that there was a training in Illinois, and I signed right up. I was like, we're going to Illinois. That was before it was online. So yeah, I've just always been pro GAPS. When I became a nutritionist and went through that, I just felt like the answer to every question on my test was GAPS. They need GAPS. They need GAPS. So then when I saw that came out, I was like, yes, I want to do that. Like I've always felt like GAPS is the answer for most things.
Mm-hmm. And so becoming a practitioner, you wanted to make sure that you knew the program well enough to teach it or direct people?
Absolutely. Yeah. So they came out with a training back then, and then they came out with a new training that was like 100 more hours. I actually did both. So I've gone and trained
really? Wonderful.
Because I was like, I don't want to miss anything. And the Dr. Natasha McBride's doing, live Q&As every day. Like I'm there. It's not every day, but you know what I mean? I was like, I want to be the best. So I've done as much training as I could.
That's wonderful, because then that helps all the people that you see, and then they have confidence in you because they know that you know the program and you can direct them in the correct way. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fun. So Liz, you talked a little bit about why you wanted to become a practitioner. Do you have anything more you want to add?
I think a lot of people hear, oh, you're a nutritionist, you must what would you do about weight loss? Or do you do macros? Or do you do, and I'm just so not motivated by that. Like, I don't want to help people lose weight. I don't want to help them go to the gym. That's like a byproduct of health that naturally comes when you take care of yourself. I'm just so much more motivated by like, oh, this person's chronically ill and hasn't gotten out of bed in 2 years. That is who I want to help. Like, I'm so motivated to help people on their journey to get their life back, not to like lose a few pounds or something like that. I would lose motivation real quick with that. But it's just so cool when you hear back from people and they're like, okay, I left the house for the first time in a few years, or, I slept through the night. And it's just things that we take for granted. And some people are just so chronically sick that they don't have any of that.
Would you want to tell us some of those success stories?
Yeah, I've had a few. I had one girl recently. She got in a skiing accident and had a concussion. And
Oh
after
my.
her concussion, it must have damaged something. But she all of a sudden couldn't tolerate any foods. And she was like bedbound. She couldn't eat really anything. She was reacting to everything. She wasn't sleeping through the night. She had depression,
Oh,
just really serious. And she started doing GAPS intro, and it's been about 6 months. And she's like exercising now. She's totally leaving the house. She can go
wow.
play basketball. She's doing all of this. And it's not me, it's really like she put in the work. And I love learning from people, but she's like, this is the first year I haven't had seasonal depression. So things like that
Oh,
that weren't even
wow.
her main issue, but are getting
Yeah,
resolved is just so cool. And she's sleeping through the night, and she's just had so much success. It's incredible.
that is incredible. Oh,
Mm.
that just kind of makes you want to tear up. See
Yeah.
people go from such poor health to being able to do things they never even thought
Yeah,
about before. But
exactly.
it's
And I
so
have another
fun.
story that's a
Mhm.
bit personal. My husband, when we first met, he had chronic migraines, which is a big sign of histamine intolerance.
Mm.
He had migraines almost every day. He was on painkillers, pretty severe painkillers, always had a headache, almost every day had a headache. It was just really rough. And we got married, and, he couldn't go to work. He had migraines. It was just
Oh
horrible. Like
my,
we
yeah.
could never get ahead financially because work, and it was like, I'm taking care of the kids and all that. Anyway, he finally agreed to doing GAPS. And I love working with men because I'm like, okay, we'll ease in. And they're just like straight to the bottle of kefir, just like downing it, They're
My,
like
yeah.
short-term pain, long-term gain. Pretty much
Yeah.
didn't listen to anything I said. He was just like, all right, kefir is good, meat stock's good. And he had a really bad migraine for the first 2 days, probably from all the die-off and detoxification. And after
Mhm.
that, I think it was like day 3, he woke up and he's like, man, I'm really tired, but I don't have a headache. And he said, I've never stayed up late and been tired without a headache. I've always had a headache when
Wow.
I'm tired. He said, this is how most people must feel when they're tired, just tired. And so he honestly didn't even do GAPS properly. Like he maybe did it for 6 months, but I don't know. He would drink raw milk, which isn't really GAPS. He would do all these things. And
Yeah.
I'd be, it's your story and I
Yeah.
don't want to micromanage. It's better for our marriage if you just like do your own thing. But he didn't have a migraine for about 2 years. And he
Oh my
only did it
goodness.
half-heartedly for 6 months.
Wow,
So
that is
really, really
impressive.
cool. Yeah. And so that's been amazing. Just we have our life back. And he definitely doesn't eat GAPS, more of a Weston A. Price Foundation diet, but just the amount of healing he got in 6 months. Still, migraines are very rare now. So that's cool.
Wow, that is incredible. That just shows exactly what Dr. Natasha talked about in the last GAPS on Congress. She said a little bit of GAPS is better than no GAPS. And in his
Totally.
case, it was a little bit more, it
Yeah.
sounds like, but yeah, I actually hadn't thought about it. I thought either all in or all out,
And
but
I'm
she's
confident.
right.
Yeah. And I'm confident if he would have done it for 2 years, like really done it, committed,
Hmm.
he probably wouldn't have migraines ever. But
Yeah.
it wasn't enough to heal and seal the gut lining, but it definitely changed his microbiome. And I can't even express, like if he was at a 10 in severity, he's at like
Hmm.
a 1 or a 2 now.
Uh,
Yeah, really cool.
it sounds like he's where he wants to be. And
Yeah. And he still says, I need to do GAPS again. Like if he'll ever get a headache, he'll be
yeah.
like, I need to do GAPS. But yeah, he also works and travels. So I'm like, okay, in
Mm.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's always the right time to do GAPS, even if we know it's the best thing for us.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we can't get mad at ourselves because we need to wait 2 or 3 years. We just have
Yeah.
to take it as we are ready for it.
And
Um,
and just
but
implementing some of the principles as well. Like, okay, maybe he doesn't do GAPS, but he's like, I'm going to have meat stock every day this week or something just to help.
yeah, yeah, because he sees the difference and sees the benefit from it.
Mhm.
Do you have any other success stories directly with someone that had histamine issue that you want to share?
Well, I've had a lot of people who I meet, they find me on YouTube, or I used to be a part of a GAPS histamine intolerance Facebook group before I got kicked out.
Oh
Um,
no.
just from saying like, it can be healed, it can be reversed. And that's kind of the opposite of their
Oops.
message. Their message is like, restriction,
Yeah.
restriction. So what was that? Where was I going with that? I have a lot of people reach out though, and they say, hey, I found you. And, at first I thought, oh, I could never have sauerkraut. I could never do meat stock. And they're like, I followed your advice. I start small. And, 2 months ago, I couldn't have any sauerkraut or anything, and I was reacting to everything. And now I'm up to 2 cups of meat stock, and I'm doing 2 teaspoons of sauerkraut juice a day, which to some people listening might be like, oh, that's nothing. But to these people, like I said, they react from a shower, so that's a big deal. And they're excited. They're like, I had a glass of wine with my husband and I'm not, in pain the next day. Or it's just really cool seeing these small successes because people see them and they see themselves being able to introduce foods and this just slow progression. So I have a lot of individual stories, but I think it's really powerful because that's what I see a lot. It's a pretty continual theme.
Pretty continual that they see themselves getting better and can not have the severe reactions.
That's and eat more foods.
That's really, eat more foods. Yeah, most people are limited, aren't they? And they come to you, they're down to just a few foods, and that's horrible. That's really no way to live.
And I think this advice is very well intentioned, but so many people I hear, oh, I have all these stomach pains and I have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and people just go, oh, you need to go gluten-free, as if it's a fix-all. I'm like, yes, but if you just go gluten-free, in 2 months, you're going to also have to go dairy-free, and then you're going to have to go this free, and then before you know it, that's the story I hear all the time. They just follow this thing, and then all of a sudden they're like, wait, I can eat 3 foods. What happened? I didn't get any better,
Yeah, but you've seen it reversed, and that is pretty awesome.
Yes.
Tell me, Iggs, let's see. The next question, I think you've already answered it, but maybe you want to expound a little more. Why did you decide to become a GAPS practitioner?
I think because it's the method that I always use and I always want people to use it. And I've just seen it be so successful that it's kind of nice to go, I'm a GAPS practitioner, so I'm working with people who have already looked into GAPS. They're willing to commit. We're on the same page. I'm not working with someone who thinks I'm just going to give them a supplement and then surprise, actually you have to do this full-on thing. It's like becoming a GAPS practitioner. People know what they're going to get. You know that we're talking about the GAPS diet.
Yeah, you became a practitioner because you want to help people through the GAPS diet. Yeah, specifically. So why would somebody choose you as a GAPS practitioner over another one?
Well, my goal in life is to help as many people as I can. So I don't know if you felt like this, but when I did nutrition school, we have like a business model thing at the end. And they're like, so if you want to be successful, you need to make sure you lock people into they meet with you once a week. And then every time you're giving them one small goal to implement, and that will have a long-term successful business. And that just doesn't resonate with me. I'm like, I don't want people to be dependent on me for 2 years, meeting with me every week. I don't want to lock them into a 6-month contract, $20,000. And, so I'm like kind of the opposite. And I know some people do want that. They want that hand holding. But for a lot of moms and people who are in a crazy season of life, or even the economy, it's just so unrealistic. Not only is your food budget going up with GAPS, but now all of a sudden you're locked into this crazy contract and that they might not need.
Yeah.
So one thing I do like about myself is I have a lot of flexibility. I do love one-on-one consultations. It's great. And I love working with people, but I love when people just come back to me. Maybe that's once a month, once every 3 months. Hey, I have questions or I'm stuck. Not just because we're in a thing. I don't know. And then that's why I have my YouTube channel as well. It's like, I go through all GAP stuff, frequently asked questions, problems people are having, how to introduce this, what to do with this. And I even have a playlist on histamine intolerance that pretty much tells you exactly how to do what I tell people on one-on-one consults. So I would just say I'm also working on an ebook, which is going to be extremely affordable. It's how to do GAPS with histamine intolerance. And so I think just for any season of life that people are in, I have resources for that, if that makes sense. It's not just, hey, you need to, commit to spending $1,000 on meeting up with me in a month or something like that. It's just affordable. It's easy. And, I have a lot of people who are in third world countries that have histamine intolerance that reach out to me. And that's why I'm putting the ebook together, because I would love to be like, here's my ebook, $20, you know,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have many ways where people can work with you, and then work if they need more deep work, then they can work with you. And you like how, and you have that set up
Yeah.
so that they can get
Yeah,
answers they need.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the ideal situation is probably people do an initial consult with me,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, with you as well, you go through all the background stuff. You give them a ton of follow-up information. It's individualized. But then if they have a question, they can probably find it on the YouTube channel or one of my other resources.
Yeah.
And they don't feel like they have to do a consult every time they have one little question and they're confused. That's the goal.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a great plan. And it seems to be working really well. And I love how you have your YouTube channel. You have it specific on general gaps, and then the histamine, and then you're writing a book, an ebook.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Because a lot of this stuff is misunderstood out there. And to have a place to go where you can get real specific information that makes sense and that works is great, how you have that set up.
Exactly.
What are your biggest challenges that you face as a practitioner?
Yeah, this is a hard one. I would say maybe mentality a little bit. Like I said, people are so used to just getting a pill, or like they get an antihistamine and it works for a year or something. And I think people are used to that instant success. And with gaps, it's like a gradual progress. So I can sometimes they get really focused on the one issue that they're trying to resolve. Say it's eczema. And maybe they're frustrated because 2 months in, they're like, I still have eczema. It hasn't completely gone away or anything. But then it's like, hey, let's look back. You're now eating 75 foods instead of 2. Your insomnia has gone away, or depression's gone away, and you don't have period pain and joint pain or something like that.
Yeah.
And so just kind of the mentality of like, we fixate on the one thing we want healed and we want it healed immediately. And sometimes you can kind of miss all the other progress you're having. What would you say yours is?
The biggest challenge? I've thought about this, and I guess the biggest challenge is, gosh, I'm not sure what the biggest challenge is. I guess, that's a hard one.
Yeah,
like you said, it is a hard one. Usually people that I see are already, they're just like, I'm going to do it. And so they like, I just have a system like you set up so that they can have success. And so the biggest challenge probably would be that when people are ready, that they're really ready, and they find success and they want to keep going. I've had 1 or 2 that are eager in the beginning, and they find success in the first week, but then as the weeks go on, they just kind of trail off and lose interest.
True.
And so
yeah,
that's probably the biggest challenge. But I mean, yeah, I just am sad about it, but it's their journey and their path, and so I have to let go. And at least they have the knowledge now, and maybe they'll get back to it again.
Exactly.
So. All right, Heather, that was the last question.
Awesome. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, it's okay. I thought about the answers to these questions myself, but haven't really really not deeply thought about them. So, okay, well, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for this. This was fantastic and fun, and it was so great to get to know you
Well,
better.
thank you so much as well.